Hello, Super Friends! If you've been around as a Batman fan for even a little bit of time, you will have noticed that there's absolutely no shortage of Batman action figures that have ended up in the toy aisles. Whether they're based off Batman's likeness from a movie, or possibly a cartoon that's currently airing on television, or maybe they're just part of a Batman Evergreen line designed to keep product hanging on the pegs in the toy stores, there always seems to be something there aimed at the imagination of the children and the wallets of the parents. Now true, Batman did see his fair share of action figures before the 1990s. It wasn't until the 1989 smash hit success of Tim Burton's Batman film that we saw demand for Batman action figures blow through the roof. Toy Biz stepped up to the plate and released action figures, vehicles, and playsets based on the likeness of the characters in the movie, but from there, the sky was the limit. We saw the Kenner Dark Knight collection, and we saw the Legends of the Dark Knight. There's been Total Justice, there's been Batman Power Attack, there's also been the Hasbro Batman Night Force Ninjas. Every single movie since the success of the 1989 Batman movie, The Brave and the Bold, Legends of Batman. Action figures based on 2004's animated The Batman cartoon. Action figures for every single iteration of Batman the Animated Series, right through to Batman Beyond. And let's not forget the Batman action figure line that we saw come out in the early 2000s, which saw comic-accurate depictions of our favorite Batman characters. And truthfully, it is because of Batman's success in the toy aisle, amongst children, parents, and collectors alike, that we now see the release of Mattel's Batman Missions line. Just a little disclaimer, as of the time of recording this video, these were not yet on toy store shelves. I had to order mine off of Amazon, but they might be out by the time you watch this video, so go have a look. If you do decide to go out on the toy hunt, either by yourself or with your children, to find one of these babies, I'm sure that you'll have absolutely no problem finding them because the graphic design is simple, yet clear and effective. Not only that, but all the figures are displayed clearly in the front, and their color schemes are designed more for the eyes of a child. And let's face it, once your little Batman fan gets a hold of this package and inevitably pushes that big green triangle on Bane's chest and it lights up in all of its glory, there's none a parent on earth with the willpower to withstand the begging which will come from the mouth of the child that picks up this toy. On the back of the packaging, we see Batman and Robin have courageously swung into action, getting there just in the nick of time as Bane is smashing himself out of prison with his bare hands, and they gotta stuff him back in there. Jeez, Bane, do you even lift, bro? Now, after you've torn into the packaging and released all three of these characters from their prison of plastic and cardboard, we're left with the vision of a Bane standing tall and ominous over the Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder. Each one of these figures is sculpted really nicely, and we're going to take just a moment to go over the details of each one. First, let's tackle Robin. Just taking a few moments here to have a close look at this Robin's color placement and sculpting details, one thing you'll notice right off the bat is that this Robin figure has a completely different sculpt than the initially released single-carded figure. All of that line work they've sculpted into the chest and the back of his suit, and also in his legs, and the details of his boots are actually completely new sculpts, with the only parts being copied from the initial release being the belt and his arms, from the shoulders all the way down. The promo image Robin uses a much more muted color scheme, has brown boots, the placement is actually a little bit different, has a completely different R, which is more akin to the Dawn of Justice Robin suit, and has a different mask. And speaking of that sweet head sculpt, in the last video I was remarking how I didn't know whether it was going to be Dick or Tim behind the mask. Well, I think I have my answer. I'm convinced that this sweet head sculpt is actually that of Tim Drake because of this picture right here. That's right, we're going to be getting a Nightwing at some point if this picture is to be believed, which in my opinion would make this Tim Drake. Now, let's move on to the Batman figure. I really like the color deco for this figure, with the black and the darker gray and the gold accents. I think it stands out really nicely, and it's not one of those ridiculous looking variants as I've seen in the past. I realize that the term ridiculous variant is a personal thing. Some people actually like all the variants. But the figure looks good, it looks clean, and all the colors flow together really nicely. I could actually see this being a suit that Batman would wear for some reason or another. Now, like Robin, when you compare him to the initially released single-carded Batman, you'll notice that most of his parts are completely new sculpts, which means this is pretty much a brand new figure with very little in the way of reused parts. Now, exactly like the Robin figure, this Batman figure has the exact same head sculpt as the previously released single-carded one. The only difference being that the single-carded has the white lenses, while this one has the painted-in pupils and retinas, which seems to work well for this figure. Other than that, the head sculpt, which is fabulous by the way, is exactly the same as the single-carded release. Both Batman and Robin's capes, much like the initial releases, attach through a hole in the back, and there's not a whole lot of fabric there because they're designed for child play and not for the collector market. And finally we move on to the Bane figure, and he's really big and really imposing, and masterfully sculpted for a children's toy. I can't pin down exactly where they got the inspiration for this one from, whether it's comics, movie, or video game. It seems to be a mishmash of all that, having more than just a little bit of creative license to do what they want with this figure. But one thing's for sure is they did manage to capture the actual essence, the feeling of a Bane figure. He's big, muscular, and imposing, and he's also wearing that strange quintessential Bane mask. Not to mention he has the Venom pack on his back as well. So he's got all the right stuff there. I just can't pin down exactly where they got the ideas from. Maybe you can leave that down in the comments below. So as for the accessories this package comes with, it only comes with those two golden bat doohickey arm things that you're looking at. And if we're gonna be completely honest, they kinda suck! Even my 5-year-old avoids these things like the plague, cause as soon as you get them on there, if you manage to get them to stay on his shoulders, the second you move Batman's arms, they pop off. They're really annoying. And now that we've had a little bit of a look at each figure close up, the next step is to cover the articulation. And as you can see, each of these figures has very much the same articulation in the shoulders, the elbows, and the wrist, all being fairly highly articulated for child's toys, a lot more than I had when I was a kid. The waists swivel around 360 degrees, and all of their heads are on ball joints, though for the most part the ball joints end up being fairly useless additions. From the groin down, these action figures have the basic forward and backward motion, and also simple single jointed knees and no articulation in the ankles. I can tell you from having 4 kids that all play with action figures, they tend to get a little bit frustrated when they can't stand them up because there's too much articulation in the ankles and in the knees. So it makes sense that those articulation points would be either simplified or omitted completely. Now for that quintessential size comparison. Size comparison!
Just how big are they?
I brought out the only Bane figures I have from my meagerly small Bane action figure stockpile. That being Legends of the Dark Knight, the Bane Movie Masters from Dark Knight Rises, and also the Bane action figure from the DC superheroes. Oh yeah, and also this tiny little Imaginext Bane.
Hey Daddy Bane, can we please go down to the dairy so that I can have myself some little supervillain ice cream? Oh yeah.
And for Robin, I brought out 2 selections of figures, the first of which you're looking at is mostly adult collectibles with that little tiny Imaginext on the end that belongs to my 5-year-old. And then for this picture, it's a custom Dick Grayson Robin, the Power Attack Robin, and on the other side, we have Burt Ward 1966 Robin, and then the Robin figure that came from that generic 2003 Batman action figure line, only I swapped the capes, because I couldn't stand the cape it came with. And then of course this comparison wouldn't be complete until I brought up the previous single-carded Robin as well and stuck him in there, so I think that's going to be good enough for now. Let's move on to Batman. So for our first Batman lineup, we have the Mafex and the Mattel Justice League Batman figure, and on the other side, we have a custom DC Universe Classics Batman, and then a Mezco 1/12 Collective Batman as well. He's in between belts right now, in the middle of doing a custom, and that's the belt that I had for him. Sorry. Lineup number 2 consists of a couple more Batman figures, all in the 6-inch scale, some custom, some not so custom. And then for our third lineup of Batman figures I wanted to drag out and compare to the one that I just got, I brought these ones out. There they are. They're there. Right there. There they are. Now, whether you find this 3-pack on Amazon or online somewhere, or perhaps by the time you watch this review, they've been released and they're in the toy aisles. As someone who has had a thorough look at these figures, I feel like there's a little bit of something there for everyone. I think this is an incredibly rad set. I mean, sure, these don't have anywhere near the same kind of articulation that a lot of adult collectors have come to expect from their action figure offerings, but it's important to remember that these are not designed for adults. They're made for children's imaginative playtime. children generally don't want or need extra articulation points that make it harder for them to control their figures while they're coming up with imaginative hero-villain play scenarios. It's under this light that when I look at these figures, I think that they're nothing less than a completely rad and amazing offering to the children's toy market. So basically, these get my 100% seal of Bat Dad approval. If you can find them, go and get them, boys and girls, because these things are awesome. But that said, and with all that covered, I think that's my time for today. So thank you so much for allowing me the chance to come into your home and share with you my Batman Missions Batman, Robin, and Bane 3-pack. If you like this video and have anything to say about it, please leave a like on it and leave a comment down below. And if you think you might like to become a super friend and join the DC squad, just hit the subscribe button and remember to ding the bell so that you never miss a video. And I'll see you in the next one. Have an awesome day, super friends. Take care.